Hi everyone, welcome back to another class. Today's yin yoga sequence is going to be targeting the hamstrings and the inner thighs. And we have a kind of double focus for this class because a lot of the postures we'll be working through today involve forward folding to release the posterior chain in the body. They're also great stress relievers, so this is an excellent one for anyone who's been experiencing a little bit of anxiety lately. So we'll be starting as usual in an easy, comfortable seat, whatever that looks like for you. If you have a block or a cushion at home, feel free to bring one underneath the base of the tailbone. And we'll start by bringing the palms of the hands to the knees and gently softening the eyelids closed. And just begin by observing the pace and the quality of your breath. See if you can start to invite your inhalations a little bit deeper into the lower belly. Allowing the ribs to expand and the chest to rise, filling the body all the way up to the throat with the breath. And as you exhale, begin to notice perhaps where you're holding on to any tightness in the body. Allow the shoulders to drop down and away from the ears. And see if you can begin to consciously soften any muscles in the body that are working where they don't need to be here. See if you can begin to soften in with the breath. Every time you inhale, see if you can sit up a little bit taller through the spine, reaching the crown of the head toward the sky. And exhale one more time. See if you can allow the rest of the body to become a little bit heavier. And we'll take 3 more rounds of breath all together, inhaling through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. One more time, inhaling through the nose and exhaling out through the mouth. At the bottom of your exhale, gently begin to blink the eyelids open. We'll stay seated for our first few postures, but just take that block or that cushion out of the way if you're using one. We'll begin by keeping the heel of the left foot nice and close in towards the pelvis and extend the right leg long. So bringing it out on the diagonal here. Just begin by flexing the toes up toward the sky. Maybe experiment with pressing the back of the knee a little bit further down into the ground. See if you can begin to feel that right hamstring engaging here. Inhale and see if you can activate through that leg. And as you exhale, relax that leg completely. Release any muscular engagement. We're going to begin by turning the body to face that extended leg. So a slight twist here in the torso. And then gently exhaling to crawl the fingertips forwards. So only as far as feels comfortable. Remember, here we're practicing yin yoga, so we will be here for a few minutes at a time. We'll take each posture nice and slowly. So a good indication in yin yoga that you've gone too far too quickly is when the muscles begin to tighten up a little bit more so than you want them to. So every time you exhale, without necessarily even softening any deeper into the stretch, see if you can focus on releasing the muscles, surrendering to the shape that we're creating here. If it feels comfortable in this variation to drop the head and neck down, that might feel nice and restorative, particularly if you found your way to this video for stress relief reasons. These forward folds can be really calming and nourishing for the nervous system, for the entire body. If you begin to notice a little bit more space become available, you can try crawling the fingertips a little bit further towards that right foot. And every time you notice your mind begin to wander, see if you can bring your attention back to the breath. Every time you inhale, find some more length through the spine. Every time you exhale, check in with your shoulders. Make sure that they're not creeping up around the ears. Keep a nice long neck and a nice long spine. Breathe into that hip and into that hamstring. Inhale to find some more space. And exhale, see if you can soften just a little bit deeper. We'll take 3 more rounds of breath in this stretch at your own pace. Maybe finding that audible rasp of the inhalation and the exhalation at the back of the throat. On your next inhale, start to lift back up to a straight spine while hinging still from the hips. We're going to bring the right fingertips around to the inside of that right leg and inhale to sweep the left arm up and overhead. So begin to spiral the chest and the lower belly up and around in space and start to sink your way into that side bend. You might feel that stretch a little bit differently now through the back of the right leg. So it can be really nice to use this top arm to reach back in space to find that opening through the front of the body. But if this starts to feel too much for the arm, you're welcome to drop it around the back of the body. See if you can wrap it round. Maybe just allow the hand to dangle down at the base of the tailbone, or you can wrap the hand all the way around the back and find the top of the right thigh with the left hand. Maybe raising the gaze if it feels comfortable for the neck, and see if you can find a little bit of a deeper stretch. If this feels uncomfortable, you're welcome to keep the gaze down towards the right toes. We won't hold this one for quite as long, so we'll take 3 more rounds of breath at your own pace. Bring your awareness back to the presence and the sensation of the breath inside of the body. And gently inhale to unravel. Release that left arm first. And then engage the core as you slowly slide the right fingertips back up, bringing the body to a neutral spine, extending the left leg long and drawing the heel of the right foot in towards the seat bones. Find that diagonal angle with the leg. And start by flexing the toes up toward the sky, maybe actively pressing down through the back of that knee, and see if you can feel the quadricep begin to engage as you release through the hamstring, activating through that leg just for a moment. And then as you exhale, soften the leg. Release any of that muscular engagement. Begin to pivot the body to face the left toes. And as you exhale, maybe start to hinge from the hips. Find your way forwards. So only as far as feels comfortable, and you may feel this stretch as much in the lower back as you do in the hamstring, depending on where you hold that tightness or that tension in the body. So take this nice and slowly. Remember, as soon as any muscles start pinching or giving you any sort of acute discomfort, it's perhaps an indication that you've gone a little bit too far, a little bit too quickly. So you can ease out of these stretches at any point if it feels like you've gone too far. Nice and slowly walking your way back out. But see if instead you can be patient with the body. Work with the breath to surrender to the shape that we've created here in this posture. And every time you exhale, see if you can release a little bit more of the muscular engagement that we normally require to hold ourselves in these positions. Surrender the weight of the body to the force of gravity, and if it feels nice to drop the head and neck down towards the shin or towards the thigh, then that might feel like a nice nourishing variation on this stretch. Can help you to find a little bit more length through the upper spine and decompress through the back of the neck. And maybe the more you allow the body to soften, the deeper you find that you're able to stretch. As you exhale, you may find that you can begin to walk the fingertips a little bit further forwards. Maybe that head can drop a little bit lower in space. Just be patient with the body and aware of whereabouts you're holding different sensations, different areas of tightness or tension, and work with the breath to soften the body. So we'll take 3 more rounds of breath here at your own pace. See if you can bring your attention back to that rasp of the inhalation and the exhalation at the back of the throat. On your next inhale, gently begin to re-straighten through the spine, lift the gaze, maybe walk the fingertips a little bit further back in space. If it feels nice, you can bring the left fingertips now to the inside of the left leg, and inhale to reach the right arm all the way up and overhead, and ease your way into the side stretch. So depending on where you feel this in the body, you may be able to crawl the fingertips a little bit further towards that foot. Just a reminder to keep the right shoulder rolling down and away from the ear. Try not to tense here through the neck. So if it feels too much to lift the gaze, you can turn the gaze down towards the left toes. And start to reach that hand towards the back wall so that you can really lift the chest. Broaden through the collarbone and breathe open through the front of the body. And if that right arm begins to feel a little bit heavy, option to drop it round the back. And you can either allow those right fingertips to dangle down by the base of the spine and roll that right shoulder back in space. Or if you have the room to wrap that arm all the way around, you might be able to find the top of the left thigh with the right fingertips. And ease back in. Be conscious of how this feels in the neck, and because we're beginning to engage the upper body a little bit more here, you might be inclined to get a bit lazy with this left leg. Just make sure that those left toes are still engaged, lifting straight up in space to stabilize the knee and the hip. And we'll take 3 more deep rounds of breath at your own pace. Maybe soften the eyelids closed. Breathe a little bit more deeply. And on your next inhale, gently release that right arm first and engage the core. That oblique should be nice and stretched out now, so you'll need a little bit of core strength to lift back up to a nice neutral spine. Moving as slowly as possible. And from here, we're going to extend both legs out to the sides for a straddle fold. So it doesn't matter how wide you get the legs here, the main thing we're looking for is that slight extension forward. So we're going for a fold. If this feels too much in any variation, you can always bring a block or a cushion underneath the base of the tailbone, and that can help to bring the weight of the body a little bit further forwards. So once again, flexing both toes, turning the tops of the thighs up toward the sky, inhaling to lift the chest, and as you exhale, begin with a straight spine as you fold forwards. So maybe that's just as far as here, depending on how tight you are in the inner thighs and the lower back, and this one really gets me. It takes me a while to warm up to this stretch every time. So just be patient as you find your way into the shape. Option to soften the eyelids closed here and really turn your attention in. And every time you exhale, maybe you find that you can soften an area in the body that was holding on to some sort of tension, preventing you from surrendering to the shape. Remember, the more we surrender to the force of gravity here, we can allow the spine to round once you find your way to a comfortable variation on the stretch. So maybe dropping the head and neck down, maybe turning the palms of the hands up towards the ceiling so that you can resist the urge to pull yourself further than you're ready to go. So stay nice and soft with this one. And if it starts to feel like a little bit more space becomes available, you can try walking the fingertips further forwards. If you're super flexible in this position and it feels quite comfortable to find your way forwards, might feel nice and restorative to bring a block into play here and use it to rest the forehead down. You can extend the arms out long. Reminder to check in with the shoulders. Keep the shoulders relaxing down and away from the ears. Every time you exhale, soften into the body so that you can allow the spine to lengthen. And we'll take 3 more rounds of breath wherever you're at with this stretch. On your next inhale, gently lift the gaze first. Find your way back to a straight spine before you begin to walk the fingertips back up towards the body. Straightening through the spine. Place your block or your prop to one side if you've been using one, and use the hands to guide the knees together nice and slowly. Bring the fingertips behind the seat bones and just gently rock the knees over to one side. Bring them back through center and exhale to twist over to the opposite side. You may be beginning to experience that rebound sensation in the legs as the circulation and the vital nutrients return to the lower body. And we're going to take one more seated fold before we find our way down onto our backs. So coming lengthways onto the mat now, we'll be extending the legs all the way long. So if you do have typically tight hamstrings, you can keep a bend in the knees here as you find your way in. And whether your legs are straight or bent, just keep the toes lifted toward the sky. And we won't lift the arms here, but we'll just start by reaching the chest forward. So try not to introduce that curve into the spine. This is one of the most common positions we see where people end up sitting tall and reaching forwards like this. So start tall, bend into the knees if you need to, and just start to hinge ever so slightly forwards from the hips. You'll start to feel that stretch through the posterior chain of the body, if not the hamstrings yet. And if this feels comfortable for the legs, you can start to slide the heels of the feet a little bit further forwards, maybe lengthen out the legs. As you exhale, you may begin to crawl the fingertips ever so slightly further forwards. Find that length through the lower back first, and once you're comfortable in your forward fold, you can exhale to drop the head, neck and shoulders down towards the legs. And completely surrender the weight of the upper body to the force of gravity. So once again, if you're a yang personality, if you tend to sort of push and pull yourself into postures, if you're trying to resist the urge to use the fingertips to pull you further, maybe just turn the palms of the hands up towards the sky. And maybe lift your way a little bit out of this fold. This isn't a competition to see who can fold furthest. This is finding your way into a position where you feel the stretch. And you can allow yourself to find a little bit of peace and stillness in a position of relative discomfort. None of these positions should feel entirely comfortable. The purpose of the postures in Yin Yoga is to alter, change, heal the connective tissues around the joints. And to do so, we need to stretch them in ways that we're not perhaps used to when we're sitting down at our desks, maybe even standing for long periods of time. So instead of resisting this shape, use the breath to find your way a little bit deeper. See if you can allow your body to enjoy a slightly different position, a slightly different shape than it's used to creating. And we'll take 3 more rounds of breath here at your own pace. On your next inhale, very gently walk the fingertips back up toward the seat bones and roll through the spine to stack one notch on top of the other, lifting the head and neck last of all. And we're going to shift the tailbone slightly forwards in space so that we can begin to ease our way down onto our backs. Find a nice reclining supine position here. And hug the knees in toward the chest. Ball up nice and tight for a few moments. Maybe draw some circles with the knees or rock from side to side or forwards and backwards. Allow the lumbar spine to release after that deep forward fold. And next we're going to extend the left leg all the way long. Keep that right knee hugging in toward the chest. And then gently interlace the fingertips around the back of the right thigh. Make sure that the hips are square, that both sides of the lower back are pressing down evenly into the mat. And then gently start to extend that right leg straight. So maybe you need to keep a deep bend in the knee here, and if you do, that's absolutely fine, as long as you can feel that stretch through the hamstring. The key with hamstring stretches is that if it feels uncomfortable at the back of the knee, you probably need to modify a little bit. If you feel that stretch or that slight discomfort through the back of the thigh, then you're targeting the right place. So if this starts to feel a little bit easier, you're welcome to start to slide the hands a little bit further up the leg. Maybe finding the top of the calf muscle. Maybe even reaching up towards the ankle. Just be patient in this stretch. This is a slight inversion as well, so this is another really good restorative position for stress relief. Just inverting the circulation in the lower body. Calming the nervous system. So find a nice comfortable stretch here, wherever that is for you, and take another 3 rounds of breath at your own pace. And as you exhale, gently hug the right knee back in toward the chest before you release that leg straight. So switching out to the opposite side, send the right leg out long, hug that left knee in toward the chest. And then gently begin to interlace the fingertips around the back of the left thigh. See if you can begin to extend the left toes up toward the sky. Be nice and patient with the stretch. It might feel completely different on this side. It's quite normal for one side to be tighter than the other. So just pay attention to whether you feel like you may need to modify or not here. Maybe keep the stretch a little bit easier, just finding that light inversion of the lower body. Or maybe if this side feels a little bit looser, you can try sliding the fingertips up the leg a little bit further, finding the calf maybe. Or sliding the fingertips up towards the ankle. So whichever variation you're taking here, make sure that your back stays flat to the earth. Depending sometimes on how far you want to find your way into this stretch, the shoulders may begin to lift up. If so, walk the hands a little bit further down the leg. Allow both shoulders to ground down evenly into the earth, and the same with the hips and the lower back. Sometimes that tailbone will want to start to peel off of the ground. If that's the case, once again, find a gentler stretch. We'll take 3 more rounds of breath in this posture. And as you exhale, gently hug the left knee back in toward the chest. Release that left leg long. An option to pause the video here to take a Shavasana. Anywhere between 3 and 10 minutes. Really allow the body to absorb the effects of your practice. Shavasana is probably the most important part of any yoga class, so it is not to be skipped. And if you're running short on time today, gently start to deepen the breath, bend the knees in toward the body, and exhale to curl onto one side. Nice and slowly begin to make your way back up to an easy seated position, however you began your practice. Returning the palms of the hands to the knees. Softening the eyelids closed. We'll take one final round of breath all together, inhaling to float the arms up and overhead. And exhaling to bring the hands to heart center. Tilt the chin toward the chest. And inhale to open your eyes. Namaste.